I woke up that Sunday morning feeling someone sitting on my chest. My eyes opened slowly, and there she was, my best friend Lisa, grinning at me like she'd just won a prize. "Wake up, sleepyhead," she said, bouncing slightly. I was so confused I couldn't even form words. We'd been friends for 2 years, hanging out at work, grabbing lunch together, talking about everything under the sun. But this was new territory. "What are you doing?" I finally managed to say, my voice still rough from sleep. She laughed and hopped off, walking toward my kitchen like she owned the place. "You weren't answering your phone, and I have big news," she called out. I sat up in bed, trying to process what just happened. My heart was beating faster than normal, and I couldn't tell if it was from surprise or something else entirely. I dragged myself out of bed and found her making coffee. She knew where everything was in my apartment because she'd been here countless times before. But something felt different today. Maybe it was the way she moved around my space with such ease, or maybe it was that wake-up call that had my mind spinning. "So what's this big news?" I asked, trying to act normal. She turned around with 2 coffee mugs in her hands, her eyes bright with excitement. "I got promoted," she said. "They're making me team leader." I felt genuinely happy for her. She'd been working hard for this, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects. "That's amazing," I said, taking the coffee from her. "We should celebrate." But as we sat on my couch talking about her promotion, I couldn't stop thinking about how she'd woken me up. It wasn't just the physical act of sitting on my chest, it was the confidence in it, the playfulness, the intimacy of it. We'd always had a close friendship, the kind where we could talk about anything. She knew about my breakup with Rachel 6 months ago, and I knew about her disaster dates with guys from dating apps. "Earth to anyone home," she said, waving her hand in front of my face. I'd zoned out completely. "Sorry. Still waking up," I lied. She smiled and nudged my shoulder. "You know, you're the first person I wanted to tell about the promotion." There was something in her voice, a softness I hadn't noticed before. Or maybe I had noticed it and just never let myself think about what it meant. The rest of that day felt strange. We went out for breakfast at our usual spot, the diner on 5th Street that served the best pancakes in town. Everyone there knew us as the duo who came in every weekend. The waitress even joked about when we were getting married, like she always did. Usually, we'd laugh it off. But today, Lisa just smiled and didn't say anything. I found myself wondering what that smile meant. After breakfast, we walked through the park. It was one of those perfect autumn days. Leaves crunching under our feet. The sun warm, but not too hot. Lisa linked her arm through mine as we walked, which wasn't unusual for us. We'd always been physically comfortable with each other. Hugs goodbye. Occasional arm touches when we talked, but today, every touch felt charged with electricity. "Can I ask you something weird?" she said suddenly. We'd stopped by the pond where ducks were swimming lazily. "Sure," I replied, curious about where this was going. She turned to face me, and I noticed she looked nervous. Lisa was never nervous. She was the most confident person I knew. "Do you ever think about us differently?" she asked. My stomach did a flip. This was the question I'd been avoiding asking myself for months. "What do you mean?" I said, stalling for time. She looked away, watching the ducks. "I mean, we're really close. We spend more time together than most couples. People always assume we're dating, and sometimes I wonder if there's a reason everyone sees what we don't." I didn't know what to say. The truth was, I had thought about it. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd wonder what it would be like if we were more than friends, but I'd always pushed those thoughts away. Lisa was too important to risk losing over some feelings that might just be loneliness after my breakup. "I don't want to mess up what we have," I finally said. She nodded, still not looking at me. "Yeah, me too." But there was something disappointed in her voice. We walked back to my apartment in silence, and when she left that evening, her goodbye hug lasted a few seconds longer than usual. That night, I lay in bed unable to sleep. replaying every moment of the day. The way she'd sat on my chest to wake me up wasn't just a friend thing. Friends don't do that. Or do they? I grabbed my phone and almost texted her a dozen times but couldn't find the right words. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I can't stop thinking about you sitting on me this morning? That sounded weird. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was Lisa. Can't sleep either? Her message said. I smiled in the darkness of my room. Nope. I replied. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, her message came through. That thing I asked you today in the park. Forget I said anything. I don't want things to be weird between us, but things were already weird. Something had shifted, and I didn't think we could go back to how things were before. I typed and deleted 5 different responses before finally settling on, nothing could make things weird between us. You're my best friend. It was safe, non-committal, and probably exactly the wrong thing to say. But I hit send anyway. Monday morning at the office felt like walking through a minefield. I saw Lisa at her desk when I arrived, and she waved like everything was normal. Maybe for her, it was. Maybe I was the only one overthinking everything. I waved back and headed to my cubicle, determined to act like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. During our usual coffee break, she touched my arm while telling a story about a difficult client, and I felt that same electric charge from yesterday. At lunch, we sat across from each other at the cafeteria, and I caught myself staring at her smile, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, things I'd seen 1,000 times but was suddenly seeing differently. You're being weird, she said, pointing her fork at me. No, I'm not, I protested. But even I didn't believe it. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Is this about yesterday? Because I meant what I texted. We're good, right? I nodded, but we both knew I was lying. We weren't good. We were in some strange in-between space where nothing was said but everything was understood. The week continued in this awkward dance. We still hung out after work, still texted each other random things throughout the day, still met for our weekend breakfast. But there was tension underneath it all. Like a string pulled too tight, ready to snap at any moment. I found myself noticing things about her I'd never paid attention to before. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. How she hummed quietly when she was happy. The little gap between her front teeth that showed when she really smiled. On Friday evening, a group from work decided to go out for drinks. Lisa and I ended up sitting next to each other at the bar, our friends around us laughing and telling stories. Someone brought up relationships, and one of our co-workers asked Lisa if she was seeing anyone. Not at the moment, she said casually. I'm kind of interested in someone, but it's complicated. My heart sank. She was interested in someone? Who? Why hadn't she told me? I was her best friend. We told each other everything. Throughout the rest of the night, I kept trying to figure out who she might be talking about. Was it that guy from accounting who always smiled at her? Or maybe someone outside of work she'd met recently? When the group started to break up around 11, Lisa asked if I wanted to share a cab since we lived in the same direction. In the back of the taxi, she rested her head on my shoulder. I'm tired, she mumbled. It's been a long week. I could smell her shampoo, something floral and sweet. Yeah, it has, I agreed, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. The cab dropped her off first. As she got out, she turned back and looked at me through the open door. The person I mentioned tonight, she said quietly, the complicated situation. I think you know who I'm talking about. Before I could respond, she closed the door and walked toward her building. I sat in stunned silence as the cab drove away. Her words echoing in my head. I spent the entire weekend thinking about what she'd said. Was she talking about me? Or was I just hoping she was? By Sunday afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called her. Want to come over? I asked. We need to talk. There was a pause on the other end. Yeah, she finally said. We really do. She arrived an hour later, looking as nervous as I felt. We sat on my couch, the same spot where we'd had coffee the Sunday before when all of this started. "So," she began, then stopped. "So," I echoed. This was ridiculous. We'd never had trouble talking to each other before. "That morning I sat on your chest to wake you up," she said, not meeting my eyes. "That wasn't just a friend thing. I know that. You know that. I've been trying to pretend it was just me being silly. But it wasn't." She took a deep breath. "I've had feelings for you for months. Maybe longer. I kept pushing them down because I didn't want to ruin our friendship. But that morning, something in me just snapped. I wanted to be close to you. In a way that was more than friends." My heart was pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. She finally looked at me, and I saw vulnerability in her eyes that I'd never seen before. "Because you just got out of a relationship. Because you're my best friend and I can't lose you. Because I was scared." She laughed bitterly. "I'm still scared." I reached out and took her hand. "I've been thinking about us differently too," I admitted. "Maybe not as long as you have, but definitely since that morning. You're the first person I want to talk to when something happens. You're the person who knows me better than anyone. And yeah, I'm terrified of messing this up. But I'm more terrified of not trying." She squeezed my hand, tears forming in her eyes. "So what do we do?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. We sat there in silence, holding hands, both of us on the edge of something that could either be wonderful or a complete disaster. "Finally," I said, "we take it slow. We figure it out together. And we promise that no matter what happens, we don't lose each other." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay. Slow. Together. I can do that." But neither of us moved. We just sat there, hands intertwined, both knowing that everything had just changed forever. Taking it slow turned out to be harder than either of us expected. The next few weeks were a strange mix of trying to maintain our friendship while acknowledging these new feelings. We still did all our usual things: breakfasts on weekends, random text messages during the day, movie nights at each other's apartments. But now there were lingering glances and moments where we'd catch ourselves staring at each other. At work, we tried to keep things professional. But our coworkers weren't blind. One day, my colleague Jake cornered me by the coffee machine. "So you and Lisa finally figured it out?" "Huh?" he said with a knowing grin. I played dumb. "Figured what out?" He laughed. "Come on, man. Everyone's been waiting for you two to get together. It's been obvious for years." Years? Had everyone seen something we'd been blind to? That evening, I mentioned it to Lisa. We were at her apartment, eating takeout Chinese food on her couch. Jake said people have been expecting us to get together for years. I told her. She smiled around a mouthful of noodles. "Your mom asked me last Christmas when we were going to start dating." I nearly choked on my food. "My mom? You never told me that." She shrugged. "You'd just broken up with Rachel. It didn't seem like the right time to mention it." She put down her food and turned to face me. But she wasn't wrong. Even back then, I think part of me knew. I just wasn't ready to admit it to myself. We talked late into the night about all the moments we'd missed, all the signs that had been there if we'd only been paying attention, like the time she'd held my hand through a scary movie and neither of us let go even after it ended, or when I'd gotten food poisoning and she'd stayed up all night taking care of me, or the countless times we'd chosen to spend time with each other over dating other people. "So are we doing this?" she asked as the clock approached midnight. "Are we really trying?" I looked at her, sitting cross-legged on her couch in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her hair messy and her face free of makeup, and thought she'd never looked more beautiful. "Yeah," I said, "we're really trying." Our first official date was both exciting and weird. We went to a nice restaurant downtown, somewhere we'd never been together before, trying to make it feel special and different from our usual hangouts. We dressed up, She in a blue dress I'd never seen before, me in a shirt and tie. When I picked her up, she answered the door, and we both just stared at each other for a moment. "This is strange, right?" she said. "Like, good strange, but definitely strange." I laughed. Relieved she felt it too. "Very strange, but you look beautiful." She blushed. Actually blushed. And I realized I'd never really complimented her like that before. As friends, we'd been casual with each other. This was different. This required vulnerability. Dinner was amazing. We talked like we always did, easily and comfortably, but there was an added layer of romance to it. I held her hand across the table. She played with my fingers, tracing patterns on my palm. When dessert came, she fed me a bite of her chocolate cake, and I felt like a teenager on his first date, nervous and excited, and completely out of my depth. Walking back to my car, she slipped her hand into mine. She said softly, "For taking a chance on us." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "I should be thanking you. You're the one who was brave enough to say something. I probably would have kept my feelings buried forever." She looked up at me. And I knew this was the moment. Our first kiss. My heart was racing as I leaned down, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. But she didn't. She leaned in too, and when our lips met, it felt like everything clicked into place. All the years of friendship, all the almosts and what-ifs, they all led to this moment. When we finally pulled apart, she was smiling. "Wow," she whispered. "Yeah," I agreed, because I couldn't form any other words. We stood there on the sidewalk, just grinning at each other like fools, until a group of people walked past, and we remembered we were in public. The drive to her apartment was quiet but comfortable. When I walked her to her door, she invited me in for coffee. We both knew coffee was code for not wanting the night to end. We sat on her couch, closer than we used to, and talked until 3 in the morning. At some point, she fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. I stayed awake a while longer, just looking at her, thinking about how lucky I was. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a new rhythm. We were still best friends, but now we were more. We held hands in public. We kissed goodbye. We said "I love you," and meant it in a different way than before. But we also kept the friendship part alive. We still joked around, still challenged each other, still had deep conversations about life and dreams and fears. My family loved that we were together. When I told my mom, she literally said, "Finally," and then called my sister to share the news. Lisa's parents, who I'd met several times over the years, welcomed me with open arms. Her dad pulled me aside at a family dinner and said, "You better treat her right. She's been in love with you for a long time." But not everything was perfect. We had our first fight about a month into dating. It was stupid, something about me canceling plans because of work. But it escalated because we were both scared of messing things up. She said I was taking her for granted. I said she was being unreasonable. We both said things we regretted. I went home angry, convinced that maybe everyone who said dating your best friend was a bad idea had been right. But an hour later, she showed up at my door in tears. "I don't want to fight," she said. "I don't want to lose you over something stupid." I pulled her into a hug, and we both apologized. Talking through what had really upset us, the fears beneath the surface argument. That fight actually made us stronger. We learned that we could disagree and still love each other. We learned to communicate better, to say when something was bothering us before it built up into something bigger. We learned that being in a relationship meant choosing each other every day, even on the days when it was hard. 3 months in, I woke up one morning with her sleeping beside me, her hair spread across my pillow, and I knew. This was it. She was it, my best friend, my partner, the person I wanted to wake up next to for the rest of my life. It was too soon to say that out loud, but I felt it in my bones. That morning when she'd sat on my chest to wake me up had started something neither of us could have predicted, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it. 6 months into our relationship, things got complicated in a way we hadn't expected. Not between us, but around us. The company announced a major restructuring, and as the new team leader, Lisa was under enormous pressure. She started working late every night, coming home exhausted and stressed. I tried to be supportive, but it was hard watching her burn herself out. "You need to take a break," I told her one evening when she came over at 10 o'clock, still carrying her laptop. "I can't," she said, her voice tight with stress. "We're behind on 3 major projects, and upper management is breathing down my neck." She opened her laptop and started typing. I gently closed it. "Lisa, you're going to make yourself sick," she snapped. "You don't understand. This promotion I worked so hard for, it might have been a mistake. Everyone's watching to see if I fail." Her eyes filled with tears. "And if I fail, I prove right everyone who said I was too young, too inexperienced, not ready." My heart broke seeing her like this. I pulled her into my arms, and she finally broke down, crying into my shoulder. We talked for hours that night, not about work, but about her fears and insecurities. About how she'd always felt like she had to prove herself, be the best, never show weakness. I shared my own struggles with feeling inadequate after my breakup with Rachel. How I'd wondered if I was capable of being in a healthy relationship. We were vulnerable with each other in a way we'd never been before. "You know what helps me when I'm stressed?" I said, wiping her tears. "Remember that time we drove to the beach at midnight just because?" She smiled through her tears. "You said you needed to see the ocean. And you thought I was crazy but came anyway," I continued. "We sat on the sand for hours, just talking and watching the waves. Let's do that again," she said suddenly. "Right now, let's go to the beach." I looked at the clock. It was almost 11. "It's a 2-hour drive," I pointed out. "I don't care," she said, already standing up. "I need to get out of this apartment. Away from work. Away from everything. Please?" So we went. We drove with the windows down, music playing. Both of us singing along badly to songs from high school. She laughed for the first time in weeks. Really laughed. And it was the best sound I'd heard in days. When we got to the beach, we took off our shoes and walked along the shore, the cold water washing over our feet. "Thank you," she said, squeezing my hand, "for knowing what I needed, even when I didn't." I kissed her forehead. "That's what partners do. We take care of each other." She stopped walking and turned to face me. "I love you. Not just as my boyfriend, but as my best friend. My support system. My person. You know that, right?" "I know," I said softly. "And I love you the same way. We're a team." We stood there in the moonlight, the waves crashing behind us, and I felt more connected to her than ever. This relationship wasn't just about romance or attraction. It was about being there for each other through the hard times, supporting each other's dreams, and creating a life together. The next morning, driving back as the sun rose, Lisa seemed lighter. "I'm going to set better boundaries at work," she said. "Delegate more. Trust my team. I've been trying to do everything myself because I'm scared of failing. But that's not sustainable." I reached over and took her hand. "I'm proud of you, not just for the promotion, but for recognizing when you need to make changes." Work got better after that. Lisa found her groove as team leader, learning to balance responsibility with self-care, and our relationship deepened. We moved in together after 9 months, combining our apartments into a small house with a backyard. It felt natural, like we'd been living together for years, because in many ways, we had. We'd been part of each other's daily lives long before we started dating. Living together showed us new sides of each other. I learned she was grumpy before coffee in the morning. She learned I had a habit of leaving cabinet doors open. We figured out how to share space, split chores, and navigate the little annoyances that come with cohabitation. But more than that, we built a home together. A place filled with both of our things, both of our memories, both of our dreams. 1 year into our relationship, on the anniversary of that Sunday morning when she'd sat on my chest to wake me up, She surprised me. I woke up to her sitting on my chest again, grinning just like she had that first time. "Happy anniversary," she said. I laughed, pulling her down for a kiss. "You know this is how it all started, right?" "You sitting on me like a crazy person. Best crazy decision I ever made," she said. "Well, technically it was the best crazy decision that happened to me," I corrected. "I didn't make any decision. I was asleep." She pretended to be offended. "Are you saying you wouldn't have chosen this? Chosen us?" I wrapped my arms around her. "I'm saying I'm grateful you were brave enough to make the first move. Because I probably never would have." We spent the day recreating our early friendship dates. Breakfast at the diner, a walk through the park, movie night at home with too much popcorn. But everything felt different now. Richer. Deeper. We weren't just friends anymore. But we hadn't lost that friendship either. We'd built something better, a relationship that had friendship as its foundation but was enhanced by love and commitment. That night, as we lay in bed, she traced patterns on my chest. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked. "Our future? Our. All the time," I admitted. "What do you see?" she asked softly. I thought about it carefully before answering. "I see us in this house, maybe with kids someday. I see us growing old together, still laughing at inside jokes no one else understands. I see Sunday morning breakfasts and spontaneous beach trips, and all the little moments that make life special." She was quiet for a moment. "That sounds perfect," she finally said. "Because that's what I see too." We fell asleep, wrapped around each other, both dreaming of the life we were building together. Neither of us knew what challenges lay ahead, but we knew we'd face them together. Because we weren't just lovers. We were best friends who'd been brave enough to risk everything for something more. 2 years after Lisa sat on my chest that fateful morning, we were stronger than ever. But life had a way of testing even the strongest relationships. My father got sick. It started with small things, him forgetting words or getting confused about dates. Then came the diagnosis. Early onset dementia. My world shattered. I tried to handle it alone at first, not wanting to burden Lisa, but she saw through me immediately. "Don't do this," she said one evening when I'd been particularly quiet. "Don't shut me out. We promised we'd face everything together, remember?" So I let her in. I told her about my fear of losing my dad, of watching him forget who I was, of feeling helpless. Lisa became my rock. She came with me to doctor appointments, helped research treatment options, and sat with me during the really hard days when I couldn't stop crying. She never made me feel weak for being emotional. She never acted like my pain was an inconvenience. She just loved me through it. "My dad asked about you yesterday," I told her one afternoon. We were sitting in my childhood home, helping my mom organize old photos. He wanted to know when I was going to marry my best friend. Lisa looked up from the photo album she was holding. "What did you tell him?" I met her eyes. "I told him soon." The word hung in the air between us. We'd talked about marriage in abstract terms, about our future together, but never about specific timelines. "Did you mean that?" she asked quietly. I put down the photos I was holding and took her hands. "Every word. I want to marry you, Lisa. Not someday. Soon." She started crying, happy tears this time. "Yes," she said. "Whenever you're ready, my answer is yes." I pulled her into a kiss. My mom walked in and saw us. She started crying too. "Your father will be so happy," she said. And he was. When I told him that evening that I was going to propose to Lisa, his face lit up with a lucidity I hadn't seen in weeks. "That's my boy," he said. "You chose well." I proposed a month later, not with anything elaborate or fancy, but in a way that was us. We were at our spot, the beach where we'd driven that night. She was stressed about work. I'd planned to wait until sunset, to make it romantic and perfect. But as we walked along the shore, hand in hand, I realized there was no perfect time. Every moment with her was perfect. I stopped walking and got down on one knee right there in the sand. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Lisa, you've been my best friend for years. You know me better than anyone. You've seen me at my worst and my best, and you've loved me through it all. I don't want to imagine my life without you in it. Will you marry me?" She pulled me to my feet and kissed me before even answering. "Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes." We laughed and cried and held each other as the waves crashed around us. Later, sitting in the sand watching the sunset, she leaned against me. "You know what's funny? Everyone always says not to date your best friend, because you might lose them. But I think we found each other twice. Once as friends and once as partners, and that makes us stronger." Planning the wedding was chaotic and fun. We kept it small, just close family and friends. The ceremony was outdoors in a garden, simple and beautiful. As I stood at the altar watching Lisa walk toward me, I thought about that Sunday morning 2 years ago. If someone had told me then that the girl sitting on my chest to wake me up would become my wife, I wouldn't have believed them. My father was there, in a wheelchair but present. During the reception, Lisa wheeled him onto the dance floor for the father-daughter dance. Since her own father had passed away years ago, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. That moment, watching the woman I loved show such kindness to my father, I fell in love with her all over again. Our marriage wasn't perfect. We still fought sometimes, still annoyed each other, still had to work through challenges, but we did it together. When my father's condition worsened and he had to move into a care facility, Lisa was there. When she got offered a job opportunity in another city and we had to decide whether to move, we talked through it for weeks before making a choice that worked for both of us. 3 years into our marriage, we had our first child, a daughter. Watching Lisa become a mother was incredible. She was patient and loving, and sometimes exhausted, but always wonderful. And I understood then what my father meant about choosing well. I'd chosen a partner who would stand by me through anything, who would build a life with me, not just live in mine. On quiet nights, after we'd put our daughter to bed, we'd sit on the couch together. Sometimes, she'd rest her head on my chest, right over my heart. "Remember that morning?" she'd say, and I always knew exactly what morning she meant. "How could I forget? You sat on me like I was a chair." She'd laugh. "It worked, didn't it?" And she was right. It had worked. That bold, slightly crazy move had started everything. It had pushed us from friendship into something deeper, something better. We'd taken a risk, both of us scared of losing what we had, and found something we didn't even know we were looking for. Looking back, I realized that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It was about someone knowing you completely and choosing you anyway. It was about building a life together, one small moment at a time. It was about Sunday morning breakfasts and midnight drives to the beach and sitting on someone's chest to wake them up because you couldn't wait to share your news. Our story didn't end with a wedding or a baby. It continued every single day. In the way she still touched my arm when telling a story. In the way I still made her coffee exactly how she liked it. In the way we still made each other laugh with inside jokes from years ago. We'd gone from best friends to partners to parents, and through it all, we never lost the foundation we'd built. That morning when Lisa sat on my chest, she didn't just wake me up. She woke up something in both of us. A possibility we'd been too scared to explore, and by being brave enough to take that first step, she'd given us both the greatest gift. A love that was also a friendship, a partnership that was also an adventure, a marriage that was also a coming home. Years from now, I knew I'd still remember that moment with perfect clarity. Her sitting on my chest, grinning down at me, changing everything without either of us fully realizing it yet. And I'd be grateful, every single day, that she was brave enough, crazy enough, loving enough to take that chance, because that one moment, that one decision, had led to a lifetime of moments just as precious.